Welcome, folks, to another episode of That Anita Live. I'm Anita, your host. Here today with me in studio is the clinical director of National Pike Health Center in Maryland, co-host of the On the Couch radio show broadcasting on WOLB 1010 AM in Baltimore. She's the author of the best-selling book, Letters for You. Icia earned a BS in psychology from Morgan State. Go Bears.
Go Bears.
She has an MSW of social work from the University of Maryland. Lord, these initials. How many degrees do you have, girl? And an MSCJ. That's a Master's of Science in Criminal Justice.
Yes.
From Kaplan University. Qualified, y'all. Qualified. Welcome, Icia Ragsdale, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited and happy to be here.
Thank you very much for coming out. Driving from way on the other side of the state to bring out
the other side of the Beltway. Yes.
So what made you go into mental health in the first place?
You know, I didn't want to do it. When I got out of high school, I was like, I want to do a career where I'm going to make some good money. I went to Morgan. I was like, I'm going to be this engineer. I just wanted to graduate from school making 6 figures. I just wanted to build things, make things work. And but I knew I was supposed to do mental health, but I always felt like mental health didn't pay any money. So I was kind of like running from that calling. And I got to this one math class, and I was always good at math, and I just could not understand it. I took calculus, and they were like, well, we want you to find a limit to infinity. And I could not figure it out. I mean, I spent hours and hours in tutoring. I stayed up all night. And I was just like, okay, Lord, I hear you.
Been there, done that.
I feel like he literally shut my brain down when it came down to this math class.
Wow.
And after that quarter, I went and had an honest conversation with my advisor. I switched my major over to psychology, and I graduated with no issues once I got obedient. So,
once you got obedient?
Once I got obedient. it was just like flying colors.
So was there anything, once you got into mental health,
yes,
once you switched over to psychology, was there anything that you began to learn that made you reconsider?
Oh boy, not necessarily in psychology. I think once I got to my master's, I definitely wanted to reconsider and I wanted to run, because when you get to the root and the level and the nature of people's hurt, and when you really see the core of what drives behavior, oftentimes it's so much easier to just turn the blind eye and walk away. Because once you know you're responsible and you're accountable, and things that's easy to judge, you can no longer just judge those things quite so easily. You kind of develop empathy and sympathy for people that sometimes other people don't have empathy and sympathy from, and they almost kind of put you in that same category when you do empathize with the other side, you know. So it's kind of like that balancing act. It's a balancing act.
So how long have you been in the mental health profession?
I've been in the mental health field, let me see, approximately since 2008, I would have to say. So a little over, about 10 years. I'm coming up on my 10-year mark. And I started off on a very direct care level as I continue to progress through academically, you know, to rise up, I guess, the food chain, so to say. But I started off at the literally very ground level. I started off as a PRP, which is a psychiatric rehabilitation worker. They work directly in conjunction with therapists. They do a lot of community-based work with.
Now, break that down for us and put it in, say, everyday lay language or street terms. Is that schizophrenia? Is that bipolar? Is that depression?
So it's all of that. For young people, for children and adolescents, it can be anybody with any type of mental health issue. You could be a parent and say, you know what? My child has extreme anger issues, they have poor social skills, and then a counselor like myself can come along and we can work with them on those skills in real life situations. I take them out with a group of kids, and as usual, some type of conflict will happen. And in the moment when I see the conflict arise, you know, you can give them step-by-step ways to handle the conflict without fighting or without being verbally aggressive or without being shy and quiet. You know, you literally can model and role play in the moment with children.
I know some adults that need some
adults.
some role play.
Exactly. We do that. You know, I've done that with adults. On the adult level, it looks like helping them with parenting skills, connecting them to resources in the community, helping them fill out applications that a lot of adults take for granted that they can do. Some people are challenged with that. And, you know, I was blessed very early on in my career to be able to help work with all types of individuals to get them to that next level and that next step of where they need to be. But yeah, absolutely right. It's a lot, and you see a lot in the community. When you do community-based work, you see a lot.
Like, for instance, what something we had happen in the area, right, just within the last couple of days, where a hospital in Maryland walked a lady out in a wheelchair to a bus stop in nothing but her hospital gown and left her there at the bus stop. Blessedly, though, there was someone that works in the mental health field that was nearby, noticed it, saw something wrong, and intervened.
And I saw that clip and I posted it on my page and I said, where's the humanity? I mean, that situation just clearly broke my heart, because when you saw the video, that is somebody's mother, that's somebody's friend, that's somebody's aunt, that's somebody's child. And the essence of what I saw was some brokenness. You know, you saw some type of mental health issue, something. She couldn't defend herself. She couldn't communicate. And what was worse was when the man, the advocate, I don't remember his name, but when he was reaching out to the hospital staff, it was like the level of just no empathy, no compassion. And that was the part that I was talking about, where I said it's like a double-edged sword, because when you see and you know, you understand on the other side. People who don't, it's kind of like they don't understand why you're so compassionate. You know,
Now, what do you think broke down in this system? What happened? Why did they leave her there? Because on the other side of the coin, you can look at, say, the hospital bill, say there is no accountable family member or next of kin, and there is no bed available at a nearby facility that's long-term care.
I still think all of those things are ridiculous.
The
reason I say that,
just say orderly. The guy that wheeled her out, let's call him an orderly. What choice did he have?
It cost the hospital nothing to let somebody sit in the waiting room. There was heat and warmth in the waiting room. It cost the hospital nothing to give her at least a blanket. Also, every hospital is equipped with a social worker. There's a social worker on staff that even if they had to allow her to sit in the waiting room all night until that next social worker came on shift, that they could have worked to find someplace stable for her to go. Now, I do get that there's sometimes shelters that are booked, that are whatever the case may be, but there are also other alternatives. Like, because she has a mental health issue, there could be a day bed in the hospital. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are just so many other alternatives and variables that we don't know. And it would have been helpful, because I think I saw this morning where the president of the hospital or CEO of the hospital, he came and he issued an apology.
He made a statement.
But nothing in his statement, he could not address what steps were taken to provide appropriate services for this woman. He could not say she was violent, she was it was just no plausible explanation from a clinical perspective that I could see as to why she had to sit out in the freezing cold. That was just a bit much.
It was, but I think everybody felt that way, because they're like, where is the compassion?
Yeah, we lose that sense of humanity.
What options did you have that you did not exercise? Because, and I say it a lot to friends of mine when I say public school is failing us, because they're not requiring students to think. They're not requiring them to process thought, to be able to get to a point to where you say, okay, now I'm at work, I need to think outside of the box. What else can we do?
So you know about the issue of Baltimore City school children, where there's no heat. The one picture that just broke my heart was the children huddled up together trying to stay warm. I just don't understand how, when Maryland is one of the richer states in the United States, how, and I'm gonna have to say, people at the top have been allowed to misallocate funds for these babies. I mean, we want to talk about education, but we have to have the proper facility for children, for learning to take place. You know, we have to have the proper mental health structures put in place to address that, both inside of the schools and inside of the homes. What really breaks my heart as a social worker is when a kid wants to go to school because that's the only time that they eat.
Yes. We've had that.
It says a lot.
Here in the DC area also.
Yeah.
We had a teacher whose eyes were open because the child kept falling asleep in class. But then when they ask the student, you know, what is going on? Why are you falling asleep in class? Now, all of a sudden, then they had gotten put out of their apartment, hadn't eaten, didn't have money for breakfast, and the list just went on. What are some of your toughest cases?
I was just about to lead into that. And oh my goodness, my toughest case was I was an intern, and it was my very first case as a therapist. My first case as a therapist, I think, was the hardest case ever. I was interning. I don't even want to say where I was interning at, but it was a child advocacy type program where I was interning. And it was a little girl who was being molested by her mom and her stepdad. And my job was to go through the entire process with this young lady that day. We went through the physical exam room where they did a special exam for children to check their genitals to see if there was any penetration or anything like that. There was proof that there was. And then you go to what's called a forensic interview, where there's a trained forensic social worker who is asking the violated youth questions, and behind this glass screen is like the sheriff's office, the police officers, and they're taking notes, because obviously if too many people in the room, you know the child is going to be
shut down.
Right, exactly. And so because she was my case, I'm going through each step by step with her, and I was just sitting there thinking to myself, what am I going to do with this little girl? What happens when the one place, and granted, children go through a lot, but mommy should always be a safe place.
Yes.
Mommy is always that pillow where you can land, where no matter how hard the day has been, you can come home to tell mama, and mama is supposed to make it all right.
Right.
But when mama is the nightmare in your dream, and daddy's in another state, that case made me want to reconsider my field. That case was hard, but I stuck it out. I stayed with her and her family for 3 years, and I watched her grow. I watched her get her voice. I watched this case develop all the way to going to court. She confronted her mom in open court. She confronted mom's friend in open court, and the court.
How old was she?
When the case first started, she was 10 going into 11.
Okay.
By the time we went to court, she was 13.
Wow.
It made me lose a lot of respect for our court system because the judge ruled against her, but he knew she was telling the truth. But what he said was, I can't rule with what I know. He said, I have to rule according to the law. And what he said was, the law is that you have to come and make your case without something like without a doubt. Like it could not be any doubt that something else could have happened. And he said, because there was some doubt that was proven by the defense attorney, he was able to put punch holes. And obviously, if you sat there and watched the case, she was communicating on a very 13-like level.
Yeah.
And he was asking her questions that were clearly over her head, and he would like reword things that she said so that she felt like you were saying the same thing that she was saying. But from an adult-like perspective, you could tell he was playing her. And she fell into it. I mean, obviously, she's 13, so she played into it. And the judge was very angry. He was like, if I was not governed by this book, and he held the book up, he said, if I was not governed by this book, he said, you would never see the light of day. He said, but according to his law, I have to dismiss the case. So that was a rough day, but it was really good because I was able to tell her, you found your voice. You said what you had to say, and that was just more freeing than anything else that you could have ever done. It's no victory like finding your own voice, because I told her nobody can ever take that away from her.
We'll be right back with more from the legendary co-host of the On the Couch radio show, one of the baddest mental health radio shows in the land.
Yes.
What if I told you that you could stop the negative tape from playing inside your head? What if, with 7 simple steps, you could leave the pain of the past behind and live every day as your true, authentic self? It is possible, and you can do it. The ebook, 7 Simple Steps to Beat Emotional Baggage, How to Become Whole, Healed, Healthy, and Happy, shares how to resolve emotional baggage and feel free to live true to your own personality, spirit, and character. Transform negative thinking into positive thinking and become equipped to boldly face your past and resolve emotional pain. Get your free copy at thatanitalive.com/ebook.
Welcome back. We're here with the mental health clinician, Ms. Icia Ragsdale.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the best and the baddest in the land. Gets it done over there.
We trying. We are definitely trying.
Our hot button right now is depression. And it really seems as if people are watering it down because somebody has a sad mood. Oh, you're depressed, you need to go see somebody.
Yeah.
Why? The confusingness is actually hurting more than it's helping.
Yeah.
What can we, as lay people in the everyday community, in these cubes and in these offices, do to recognize clinical depression?
You know, I love the website NAMI. NAMI does a lot of work with mental health in the community, and they do a great job of breaking it down so that even if you're not a clinician or you're not in the field, you can understand. And on their website, they have the most common mental health disorders listed, as well as symptoms that you can look up and that you can look through to identify, oh, yeah, I have 5 of these symptoms, I could be this, you know, or I have 3 of these symptoms, I could be that. And
it does require more than one.
It does require more than one.
Not just
no.
Right.
No.
Right.
Even for people who think their kid is ADHD, like, oh, my kid won't sit still. Well, that doesn't qualify as ADHD. There's like 6 or 7 out of 12 different qualifiers, you know, that your child has to meet in order to get a diagnosis. Now, the issue is that there are a lot of factors that go into your mental health. You know, there's social issues, there's economic issues, there can be situational issues, you know, that can weigh and play on our emotions and our feelings, but it doesn't necessarily dignify us as having a clinical diagnosis. And I always say therapists are your friends. You know, even if you're not sure, just go talk to somebody. You know, it's nothing wrong with checking somebody out saying, hey, can I just have a consultation? This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. I don't know if I need sessions, but can you just give me like an initial...
Yeah, help me talk this
Help me talk this thing through, you know? And that's just me. I'm always like, go ask, go seek, go find, you know, go find out what's going on.
In the news, whenever there is a mass shooting, the first thing we receive back as a possibility, oh, this person had a mental illness. Why is that what they turn to?
Well, honestly, I think that a lot of times people turn to that because there's no real explanation. You know, whenever there's not an explanation, people are always looking for a reason why. Like when somebody dies, you're always trying to figure out why. You know, oh, they died because God needs a new flower in his garden. Oh, they died because, you know, God needed him more than me. And whatever you believe, you know, is great.
Right.
But when we get things that we don't understand, I think it's just human tendency to try to put a label on it, to just try to figure out what it is. And one of the things that my pastor says, he said this on New Year's Eve, and I just fell in love with this statement. He said, if God was small enough to be understood, he wouldn't be big enough to be worshiped. And that, I was like, wait a minute, time out. I was like, say that again. Say that one more time. Like, let me thoroughly understand what you said. Let me grasp that. You know, that if God was small enough to be understood, he really just would not be worth my time to worship. And I think that there are times that we don't, we're not okay with not knowing, so we always try to put a label on it. But just in my field and just I see his perspective, I would ascertain mental health to a lot of things like mass shootings. I would definitely say that there's something going on that they're not talking about, that they're not expressing, that they're not getting help for, and that's why they're expressing themselves in that way. You know, I love cognitive behavior therapy, and it talks about what you think is how you feel, and how you feel is how you behave. And obviously, if I'm behaving in such an egregious way, I'm thinking and feeling some very inappropriate things.
But a lot of the times it just comes out of the box. It's not something that they've noticed in their behavior for like the last...
I would have to disagree
3,
with
4,
that.
5
If you
months.
think about the Virginia one, right? The what was that? The Virginia College. They were at some Virginia college. The mass shooting that happened. This was a few years ago. Which one was it? Virginia Tech.
Okay.
The professors and the students, when they recalled back, they were kind of like, well, he was a little weird. He was a little off. And I always say hindsight is 20/20, you know, because in the moment you see people are a little weird, people are a little, they're different. I hate to use the word weird. Weird is so non-clinical, but just in everyday conversation, you know, people do things that's a little off kilter. And sometimes we don't ascertain anything to it. We're like, oh, that's just Johnny. oh, that's just Uncle Bo, you know, like that's just how they are. And then something happens and it's like, maybe I should have said something. That was a little.
Because then the question is, but how long has that person been that way?
You know, and I don't know. And
because one, they got into the university.
Mm-hmm.
Two, their family dropped them off. We would think that family wouldn't drop them off if they had.
I don't know. Some families I know, they are looking for places to send their people, you know, because they want to be somebody else's problem and not theirs, you know, and sometimes people think things can fix their family, whether if it's church, whether if it's school, whether if it's another relationship. We always look to the exterior to fix what's really going on the interior, you know, and I always want to be clear, mental health does not necessarily interfere with cognitive ability. You know, you can be intelligent enough to get into a college or a high school or a high performing whatever, but necessarily your emotional, mental side may not be strong enough to sustain you there.
Then they say that there's a thin line between genius and psychotic.
I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that.
Why?
Because a lot of times people escape. You know, I think anything without balance is not good, you know, and I love being smart. You know, I have several degrees, right? But if I was to be transparent, I got some of those degrees after going through some very hard times, you know, and it became easier to just kind of like put my reality on hold for a second.
Well, speaking of hard times, we have written a very transparent book called Letters for You.
Yes.
And actually, one of your reviewers sent me a little something. They said the book is about the journey of self-discovery. This reviewer described it as the author being very raw with her emotions. It makes you feel like a peeping Tom looking into the window of her experiences. The author is not interested in pity or sadness from the reader, but interested in giving the reader a sense of hope.
That's nice. They was talking about me.
Yes.
No, that's good.
So, but hearing that, how does that make you feel?
You know, it makes me feel humbled, you know, to be honest, because I had started writing this book when I was 9. And when I was 9, I lost my dad. And this goes back to trying to figure out and understand something that's not really understandable. I remember writing little short stories about a little girl living in a castle, you know, and the king died, but I was 9, you know, and as I continued to grow, it just seemed like more things kept happening. And I remember I sat down to write that book at 18 and my computer crashed. I had written like 200 pages on Word. My computer was like, nope, and it was unrecoverable. And then I remember I tried again at like 20 and something else crazy happened. And then I tried again at 21 and then my mom got killed. And then I tried again and I was just like, I feel like I have this story that's got to come out, but every time I tried to get it out, it just wouldn't come out. And then I realized I wasn't where I needed to be in order to write it.
Okay,
you know, so
I'm going to call out one of the titles from the table of contents.
Okay.
And you tell me what that chapter is about.
Okay.
And what it means in your life.
Okay.
Okay? Broken.
Oh man, broken. Broken represents so many things. In that chapter, I was really reflecting on my time after my father passed away. Just to give you like a little bit of a baseline to the book, it's called Letters for You because every chapter is a different letter of the alphabet and it goes from A to Z and it goes in chronological order. So it starts off, I think I was about 9 or 10 and broken. Maybe I was a little bit older, but in that broken space, because I did not effectively deal with my dad's passing away, I began making really bad choices, you know, and those choices, they really almost killed me, you know, and it's almost like a mirror. And if you can imagine like a ball hitting a mirror and you're still trying to look in that mirror to get a picture of who you are, that vision is distorted, but you don't realize that you're looking at a distortion. You're just accepting that that's really what it is. And I don't know if that analogy is making sense, but it's making sense.
Yeah, because even as the mirror breaks and the lines are shown, you still see what was originally there. And you're not dealing with the broken pieces that you have on the inside.
Exactly. But meanwhile, those broken pieces are cutting at you. And then in turn, you're cutting other people that you're coming in contact with. So
humiliated.
Oh, humiliation. That was after my sexual abuse. That was after, I remember I had to be very transparent, and I went to the hospital, and they did the whole rape kit. And then from there, I can't remember if it was like a day or two later, I had to go meet with the district attorney, to share my story. And I just remember how dirty and just how humiliating it was. And I told my mom, and that was really hard, to express those types of feelings in front of your mom, and to really confront the fact that things were happening to you that you had no power and no control over. And again, it's another one of those things where you try to rationalize, what did I do? Was it something I wore? Was it something I said? Maybe it was my perfume. Maybe I shouldn't have worn my hair like that.
Trying to take the blame yourself.
You try to take on the blame, and you try to own the responsibility to figure out what could you have done differently to stop that situation from happening. So that was humiliated.
Moving forward,
I believe off the top of my head, that was a chapter that dealt with my mom getting killed and me figuring out how to put my life back together after that. I was at a crossroads at that point because I had to make a decision. Was I going to be mad and angry and bitter and kind of spiral like I did with my dad? Or was I going to try to really hone in on my relationship with God and trust him to really move forward from a healthy place and from a healthy perspective? And I really had to fight through some things emotionally. I had to fight through some battles, some thoughts, some challenges, because I was 21 with no parents, and I was 21, just graduated, and I just really kind of felt from undergrad.
Right.
Yeah, from undergrad.
And you went on to get 2 master's degrees. Clearly, it is very possible to keep.
It is possible, but I can honestly tell you, if it was not for my relationship with God, if it was not, that has been the anchor and the sustaining force of my life. Had it not been for that, I don't think I would have been here.
So for the person out there right now that is struggling with, they know they have some internal emotional baggage that they need to deal with, but they're still going through the process of being ashamed. How would you suggest that they work through it and find someone professional to speak to?
Wow, that's a tough one. I don't know if that person will have a support system that can go with them, to hold their hand through that process. I would always suggest finding a trauma-focused therapist. There are many different therapists. There are many therapists that have different, specializations or specialties. For the person who's experienced a specific trauma, try to find a trauma-focused, trauma-centered type of therapist, one who is specifically trained for that situation. And to be honest, that was one of the reasons why I wrote my book, right? Because oftentimes as therapists, we're always telling our clients, it's okay, talk to me, tell me, share, open up, it's a safe space. Well, I have to first enter my own safe space. Yes. And I wanted to make sure that I went through that journey first to know what my client is going through every step of the way, so that I could not only clinically help them, but just as a human, as a woman, as a person, I could empathize and literally let them know it's okay, you're not alone. I understand. You can anticipate this, but it looks like this on the other side. So I would just encourage them, find your voice. There's no true freedom, there's no real freedom like finding your voice. Because once you find it, nobody can take that away from you.
Nobody can take that away from you. Mental illness is not a menace to society. Do your part. Conduct research, visit the NAMI website, work to understand what mental illnesses are and how you can show care, how you can show compassion and respect, not command and control. Remember, no one wants to be fixed. We want to be heard.
Yes.
Reach out to Ms. Ragsdale. Find her on Facebook at facebook.com/onthecouchradio. I'm Anita, your host. Be sure to check out that'sanitalive.com for where and when to see our next episode.